Hello everyone. Warm greetings from GirlScript Goa. Happy Liberation Day to one and all. I am Kripashri Kohli and to welcome each one of you. I would like to start with introducing GS. GirlScript is a Section 8 non-profit company. It is open for all organizations and support beginners in technology and programming. It also supports diversity, reserving seats for women and LGBT in all its programs worldwide. The name is GirlScript because we want more women to be a part of the technical industry, but we support diversity in tech. Although it should be remembered that we are not only women tech, but we welcome everyone to join us irrespective of age, color, caste, nationality, religion, or gender. GirlScript Goa has 5 chapters until now. We have organized numerous events on data science, game development, digital marketing, AI, cybersecurity, on. Let's move on and let's put some limelight over few initiatives by GirlScript Foundation. We present first ever reward-based personalized live interactive learning platform. It has live you can get personal counseling. The projects will help you to enhance your portfolio and enhance your overall and get you motivating rewards. So do check it now. Now I request all your attention here. Presenting to you GS Cup. GS Cup is community-based event that will promote and encourage the students who have contributed to any community. GS will be awarded to the students who will score the maximum number of points according to the guidelines and contribution. Let me tell you the categories for it. First, everyone. Second, GirlScript family. In this GS Cup, you will be awarded with points on a scale of contribution you have made to the community. So all you have to do is, first, select a leaderboard category. Second, select contribution category that will give you points. Third, submit the contribution details and proof. Do make sure and now I would like to request Riddhi Sadarkar to take over.
Thank you so much, Krupa. Good morning, everyone. Wishing you all a very happy Liberation Day. GirlScript Goa has a small surprise for all of you. What a learning session without rewards. We have a surprise. Post the talk, a link will for the small quiz shall be shared to test your knowledge based on Python. The link will be shared on the screen, dropped in the chat section of the YouTube, as well as shared on the group. Upon successful completion of the quiz, you shall receive a certificate of participation from GirlScript. Even if you haven't registered for the event, go ahead, participate, as your certificate shall solely depend on the quiz. So make sure you pay attention to the talk and make the best out of it. Moving ahead, let's begin with our session titled Say Hi to Python. Python is an interpreted, object-oriented, high-level programming language with dynamic semantics. It's simple, easy to learn, and syntax emphasis readability and therefore reduces the cost of program maintenance. Today we have Mr. Karan Jakhar with us, who is a data scientist at ReInvent Systems. He has completed his Bachelor of Engineering in Computer Science and Engineering from Chandigarh University. He is also a Kaggle Expert and has interest in machine learning and deep learning. He also enjoys blogging and is a technical writer at Medium. I would now request Mr. Karan to take over.
Hello everyone. Yeah. So as mentioned, Python is very fairly easy, and in a few days or I would say in a week, you could learn some basics of Python, and you you could get comfortable with it. Let me share my screen first. Okay. So in this section, I want it to be more depend on the code. We will be talking about the concepts of Python, and side by side, I will be showing you the running code. So first of all, let's talk about this environment I'm using. This is Google Colab. So basically, if you don't want to install uh, any Python interpreter on your system, or you have an old system, so you can use Google Colab. It's a online platform. Computation happens on the cloud. It is a great service provided by Google. And if some in future you interested in machine learning, deep learning, then it will also help you, as it is a free resource. They also provide GPU. So the the interface you are seeing here is used for, it's called notebooks, in which we have code cell and we have like text cells. So let's start with some, yeah, basic in a language. What you want to learn first, there are some key concept. If you go with any language, you have to learn like how to control control the execution, and also how to output something, and how to stores the value and functions. These are some key concepts that you have to go through while learning any language. Like for printing out statements, holding some values, controlling the execution and functions. And every language have some pre-built data structures. We will talk about them in for Python also. So let's start with the printing. Like we want to print something on the command line, or in Python the print statement, we use print to print anything. Mostly you will use this statement is for debugging. Like in Python you won't be directly using it because it outputs on the uh, command line or terminal, we say. So in advanced application you won't be using print for any like only command line application you can use. But for if you use Python for web development or anything, just print is mostly used for debugging to see the outputs. I have prepared some basic examples. We will go through them, and I welcome the questions on them. Like we at beginning we have a lot of questions. We have like how this is done and what should we choose. At starting you should focus on choosing setting up your tools. Like you have to pick up some editor in which you can practice. There are a lot of editors, and installing a Python is very easy. You can just go to python.org. You will find it's very easy to install Python. Then you should choose any editor, like their VS Code, Sublime, Spider. There are a lot of codes. And if you go in the field of machine learning, Python is used in various fields, like in cybersecurity, networking, machine learning, AI, web development. But if you go in the field of machine learning, deep learning, and AI, I suggest you try Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook. Those are great tools. They help a lot. This is also a Jupyter Notebook, but Google Colab has modified it according to them. So let's start with the concepts of Python. So to print a statement, it's very easy. We use print, and in between whatever we give, it's directly got printed. This is we can run it from here. Just have to click on, like this is called the string. We are wrote the hello Python. If we do like Python 5, it is called in normal integer. And if we have to print multiple multiple things, like integer, strings and all that, so we use the comma. We separate them with comma, and 5, 4, and whatever we place, it got printed like that. Second, let's talk about variables. If you're familiar with any other language like C, C++, in those we have to declare the variable. Like we have to tell that if A is holding some value, what type of value it should hold. But in Python we don't have to do that. Like we just have to assign the value. With this statement is means that a will be holding value 5. So whenever I call a, it means I'm using value 5. 5 is an integer. There are different type of like variables. We say integer, string, and floating, and there is also like double and all like that. But yeah, majorly these three will work out in every situation. So we just assign the value a equal to 5, and if we want to declare a string, we put into a, inverted commas. So in Python it doesn't matter if we use single, double, but in C++ other language it matters. But in Python it doesn't matter. You can use single, you can use double, and you can use triple also. That is also used sometimes. Okay, these are some fairly basic concept. More we move on to some like data section a lot, that would be like little deep. You see, like, yeah, it is a great interface. You should practice on this interface, like running some sample codes. More you practice, more you will be comfortable with all these things. Like in Python we can use same variable multiple times. Like I assigned a 5, then I printed, then same a I assigned the string value, so it changed its value to string. In other language, C++, like all these languages, C++ I'm mentioning more because most of in colleges, if you go with the BTech engineering in first semester or first year, most of the colleges they taught C++. So in Python, it is a, we can say, is a great feature. We don't have to worry about like if it's assigned 5, we can easily assign it a string. That's not an issue. You can see. Now let's work a little bit with strings. String is a, in variables you should focus, give a little focus on strings. You should, because strings are very helpful. You can manipulate them and could have a great solutions. So, and it's very easy to manipulate strings in Python. You can see here, if you multiply it by 3, so it repeats the same string 3 times. Basically you don't have to like cram all these or remember all these things. You should just know that these kind of things exist in Python, but you don't have to be hard on these, like you have to remember. You just have to know that these things exist. And after knowing all these things, you should focus on some small project or something, or any program or any fun project you want. And whenever you're stuck, you can go check out the documentation or any tutorial online. You can instantly get the results, just so you don't have to like hard cram all these things. I am just showing that you should know that we can do these simple things in Python. It's fairly easy. Like we can add 2 strings very easily, like as one holding this one string and as to another. So we can easily add up them if you want to add them. And if you are like familiar with C++, Python would be very easy for you to hold, because concepts remains the same, but Python is little easy to handle all those concepts. See here we can add. So another, there are a lot of pre-built functions we get with these strings, like replace function. We say method, replace method, lower, upper. We get a lot of methods pre-built with string. These are very useful. Again, you don't have to like cram all these things, or you should not be like remembering, like you should not have to like hard remember all these by heart. You just know, you should have an idea that this kind of something like this function exists there. Anytime you can just go with the documentation. There is a great documentation on strings also. You can just search, you will get all the methods over there. So you should know that there is some function that could replace some value in string. Like I want to replace the spaces with the underscore, so I just assign as a string. Then what I did, I print. Then with spaces, I say that I want to replace all spaces with this. So first will be what we want to replace, and second argument will be what width we want to replace it. And then Another great thing is slicing in Python. So like this is a string, we want to access a particular part of the string, like from here, and we want to just access one part of the string. We can do with this slicing. Like and there is another pre-built method in Python, len, that you use to find length. It could find length of the string, list, tuple. Most of the time of most of the data structure, we can use it with the length. We can find the length of anything with len method. It is a pre-built method in Python. And slicing, how we do it, in Python or in programming world, our index starts from 0. So like if I say 3 to 6, it means that third index, but actually if we count from the starting, it should be the fourth one, like 1, 2, 3, and fourth, like from A, it should be from A. And it doesn't go like to the sixth. It would be like 6 minus 1 to the 5. So 3, 4, and 5, it would only print these three. So it would be from 3 to 5. 6 is like upper limit, so it would be less than 6, not equal to 6. That's how we can use the slicing. We can use the slicing in lists also. We talk about them list in later on. Those are the data structures in pre-built data structures in Python. So another useful methods in strings is to we can convert whole string to uppercase and whole string to lowercase also. So these are some basics. Like we have talked about print statements. Uh, if you want to cover only the Python, basic Python, there's not lot much you have to learn. Just you have to cover like print statement you get with it, like how to use print statement, how we can print multiple things, like this. And print statement by default changes the line after printing, and so we can change that also. And next thing, we go with the variables. So we are covered with the print statement, and we are covered with the variables. Variables doesn't have to do with, we haven't to do not much with the variables. And then we talked about these strings. And we know that string has a lot of methods. We can replace inbuilt methods, replace. I have just talked about a few, like upper, lower. There are a lot of methods in Python, in string. You can, if in future you want to work with strings and you have to do some operation on string, chances are there would already be a method over there. Like we can there's a great method also called split also. Let me show that. That is also a great method. We can split a string, like if s has something, what we say, let's let split this one. Okay, so if we want to like split this string, we want to like get a string in parts, so we can use split method. What we do, we just do s uh, dot split, and then we have to define that how we want to split this string, like what should be the main point. So I say, okay, split it by spaces. And if I run it, you say, see, the string is splitted by using the space as a splitter. Like here is a space, here is a space, so it will split the parts by using the space. We can define other things also, like if I say let's split by t, so it used t as a like middle point, like when it will print this, and it returns a list, like all these things are separately given to me. So it is a very useful thing. Split is also very useful method you will be using a lot. That's why I have shown you this. Okay, now we are done with the string, variables, and print statements. And if you have any questions, like please let me know. That would be great. If you have any questions, it could be anything. Any questions, please?
Yeah, hi Karan. Someone asked reasons why Python is slow.
Yeah, Python is slow because Python works as a wrapper. because most of the libraries are written in C, C++, and Python gets a high level wrapper and API. So what happens when we call those functions in Python? They basically get executed later in C, C++. So that process takes time. But right now I won't say, because in most cases uh, Python has covered up that sense. If you see in the, not in the speed matters, Python is Python is slow compared to C, C++ language if we go with the execution. But if we see that in the development part, Python is fast to develop applications with than with C, C++, because it has simple code structures, so we can develop applications faster in development. So main reason is that if Python is a kind of wrapper, like we have a behind backend programs are written in C, C++, and Python works over them, so that's why it is slow. Yeah. Any other question?
Yeah. If someone doesn't have any prior knowledge of coding, how should he or she start with the basics of Python?
So yeah, I would say that the main learning part for you will come with a project pushes you to learn a lot, like them. But before starting a project, you should go through some Python videos, like attend a webinar or like that. And on YouTube also you can go through, there are a lot of great tutorials on YouTube with Python. So you just go through them. You don't have to like remember anything or learn. Just don't aim to learn like you have to like remember everything. Just go through them like just you are watching any series or anything. Just go through them, to, one to two tutorials. Just go through two tutorials. There would be around 15 15 20 10 to 15 videos in one tutorial. Go through two tutorials, you will get a different view from two authors. And after finishing those two tutorials, then focus on some projects. Any project, pick up any basic project. You after covering those tutorial, you would be having something in your mind, like I want to make that like them. So then start working on that project. The main learning part will come from that project. But for starting that project, you need some basic knowledge, like you should know that how to install Python and all that. All these things will come from the basic tutorials. But later on, as many projects you work on, you will learn better, like. Yeah. Any other question, please?
What are the prerequisites we must have for learning Python as a language?
I think there are none. We don't need any prerequisites to learn the Python language. Python is very fairly easy, so we don't need anything for learning Python. You can just start with the Python. If you have no knowledge of coding, also you can start with the Python. It's a very fairly easy language. Yeah.
Thank you, Karan.
Yeah. So okay, let's start with the input. How to take input in Python. Mostly the input method, you would be using these only if you are making command line applications, like terminal applications. The input method is mostly would not be used in if you working in other field, like in web development or like that. These are just if you are preparing some command line application in networking or something like that. So it's easy to take input in Python also. We just use the input inbuilt method. And if you want to output something, like enter something and like this, we define that as an argument in input method. Enter something, and it's just fairly easy. I just show you running. It's asking enter something. We can enter anything like 10. You can see the input by default converts. If I have entered a 10, it should be integer, but it input method by default converts it to string. Everything is converted to string by default in X. So I have entered 10, but it has converted X into as a string, because I have, there is a method type. We use it to see the type of a variable. uh, I want to know that what is the type of x, what kind of value x is holding, integer, string, list, or anything. I want to know that. So then I will then we will use type method. So type showing that here you can see str, it means it's a string. But if we want to use x as an integer, we want to use x an integer, so we use int method, like I have shown here. Like we define that int input. We can convert here also, like if you want to convert this x into int, we just say x equal to int and x. It is a typecasting, we just convert. And we can convert it to float also. If we define here a float, it's easy. So we just say int, so x will be converted into x is here string, it will be converted into an integer, that would be 10. Nothing much to do with the inputs, it's not that used that much, but in the starting it's easy. I think you got it. We don't need further examples. And one concept that is you will in the beginning you will face a lot of error, and like those in the editors, and if you're working on some other code, would be the indentation errors. Python don't uses like semicolons and all that. If you put a semicolon, it won't give you error also. But it don't want you use semicolons as end of a line. But and it also doesn't use curly braces like C++ and Java to know the block of code, like where this block of code belongs. So it has to use something. So Python uses spaces or indentation, we say, as a defining the next line and code of blocks. Let me show how it works. Like if I define x is equal to 3, let's take another example. Simple. We come to this also. Like see, if I say x equal to 5, and if I just give a little space over here and then say y equal to 6, you see it gives an error. It says indentation error, unexpected indent. So what does it say? Okay, why you have given this space? Because it is not justifiable. You can't give spaces in front. This will give us an error. We have to keep in a same, like, because these two statements belong to same code block. If I give it a space, it means I'm saying y belongs to a different code block, but I haven't defined which code block. Like if function, if method, I haven't defined anything. So that's why it is giving an error. But here you see, uh, I want to define different code blocks. Like this is one, we can say x equal to 3. Then I define if statement. Now I want to put some code in the if statement only. I want to say only if this statement becomes true, then then a particular lines of code should run. So how I would do, I would say I would give indentation. I give it a space, like this small space defines that this print statement belongs to only this if block code. And there is also else. So we say if this statement false, then runs this code block. So we define it here. It's fairly simple. We have to give the indentation to define that this code block belongs to that. You can run it and can see the results. It won't be given as an error. And so most of the editors and most of like in this environment also does this thing by default. If you put like if and put the full colon here and then just to press enter, it will by default will give the space. Like if I put an enter, I like see the control comes by default here. So using a good editor is also helpful. If don't go with the normal text editor, that would be like won't be good that much. So most of the editors will do it by default. You don't have to worry. But in some cases in the future, you are working, you are getting some indentation error. Go check, watch all your spaces and all that. In beginning, usually it happens a lot because we don't have much of the knowledge. But later on, we get used to it. So indentation error, we can handle it. Yeah. So here we use the if and else. Let's talk about the if else conditions. So if and else relies in that part of I talked about you to control the execution. If else gives us power to control the execution. Like if we want to execute a particular statement or not, that we could do only with if, else, and else if. It's a fairly simple concept. If we just say if a equal to b, we can put any condition here, and we put any condition here whose result would be like true or false, and on basis of that it would decide that it has to execute the below statements or not. Like in this example, I say is fairly simple: a equal to 5, b equal to 5. If a equal to, we use, when we want to compare something, we use double equal to. When we want to assign some value, we use a single. So that this is also a common mistake. Do watch for it, because sometimes we just we use single also here, and sometimes this happens, yeah, with a lot of code. You should watch it also. These are some common mistakes. So this is fairly simple. All these things I'm showing you is just, it will introduce you to this concept, but more you practice, you will become comfortable. There are a lot of platforms also you can, if you want, like you want to practice some basic code snippets, there are many websites also you can practice it on. HackerRank, and I think you can participate in competitions also. You can solve problems like that, so it will improve your algorithm, data structure, and coding programming skill simultaneously. I will show you a few of like operators. This is a equal to operator, like it compares those are equal or not. And this is not equal to like a is not equal to b. If a is not equal to b, then only this statement will be executed. And this one is greater than. If a is greater than b, we say a is greater than b, like these are some operators. We say these are logical operators. So this is a little big example. I can say if a is greater than 10, this is the first if statement, second, like this. So in all these statements, only one statement will be executed, because we are using if else. So there is a difference between like if, normal if we place like 3 4 ifs here, so all if conditions will be checked. Like if I put another if here, I say, okay, if this condition, and I put another if condition over here, like say if is greater than b. So both of these statements would be executed. Let's see the result. So see, the both will be executed. This if will be checked, this if will be checked. But if we use if else, then only this statement, if this statement runs, then this won't run. And if this doesn't work, then this will run. And there is also an else if. In some cases, you want to use the multiple if else statements, like if this works, then else, then check, then also want to check a condition. So we won't do that, we place else and then we put in if in. We just use else if. Like if this works, if this is false, go to next else if. This will be checked, then this will be checked, and then this. If in between any statement works, like any statement becomes true, like this first one becomes true, then these three blocks will not be checked. Only the first will be run, and then control will come below all these three blocks. It's simple, like we put if, and this is the full colon. This defines, we use full colons to define a block of code. If you put full colon and then there comes a code block of code. This is just a syntax, like if there would be a condition and then all statements. Okay, so far any questions? We talked about, let's wind up later. We talked about how to take input in Python, how indentation works, how Python uses indentation and spaces to define code blocks and define next line. Then we talked about if else conditions. Yeah, any questions so far?
Karan, in the first time when you said, when you were explaining split, someone asks that in the split of T,
Yeah.
uh, will it split, like why is it his, will it be his one, or will it be different, his and a one will be completely different, and why is it like that?
What the question is why his and one is combined? They are not
Yeah,
separate. Yeah. So
yeah,
basically, why they are combined? Because we are splitting with the T. Because see where are the all the T's? Like here it is. So it will be splitting by T, not by the space. So in here, his one, there is no T. There is no T. So that's why it is not splitting based on, it is not based on space. If we split on based on space, then they would be different. His one, there is no T. It split like that. It would how it splits, like it starts from the starting LE. When it's find T, it's put this into list, and then append it into list and then move on. It would start after the T from here. Then it start executing. When it find T, then how much it has covered, it put in the new variable, append into the list, into a new position, then skips the T, then start from the next position, and then start execution, and then again it hit the T. So whatever it has covered, like a single space, then it put it here, then skips the T and starts from the next character and move on, and it hits the end. So it put it into another appends into the list. It's a list. So if we split it on the based of like space, then we can see this and one is different, because it is splitting based on the space. Yeah, is it clear? Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, Karan.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No, as of now.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to loops. We say loops, iterations. So we need, now we talked about holding the values. For that we use variables. We learned about the if else. For using if else, we can put conditions on statements, like we want to execute a particular code or block or not. But now we need some feature by which we can repeat a task. We want to do, imagine we want to do some task with a minor small change. So how we repeat that task multiple times? We want to do some task around 100 times. We can't write 100 statements again and again. So for that we have loops. They are mainly, we have for and while loop. They are majorly, these two loops are used. So let's about the for loop. So getting comfortable in Python, you should get comfortable with if else conditions and for loops, and then manipulating using the functions efficiently, and passing the variables and all that. These are just basic concepts. These will make you comfortable. Yeah. So let's move on. Yeah. So this is a fairly simple example. What we are saying here, for I in method is used to get check that check every value of a list. What you are saying, that I in range 5. So range 5 gives an output as a list. So, let me show you. Range is also a inbuilt method in Python. You don't have to like by default use it with the for only. It is a by pre-built method in Python. So if we say in range 9, so it gives a iterator, means we can iterate over it. It gives value from 0 to 9. So we are getting value from 0 to 9, and 9 won't be covered in it. It would be till 8. So like that. And we can like define the starting and ending value also. We say 2, you can say like this also. So it is giving from 2 to 9. And we can define also the how we want to skip it. Like we say range, and we want to start from the 2, but every time you should add 2 to it. Like we want to jump two statements over it. So range gives us a iterator. It's showing we get an iterator from 2 to this. Yeah. So if I say for I in this range, it means that it will be giving me input from like 0 1 to 0 to 4. And if we define it like I want it from the 2 to 5, then it will give 2 3 4. And if we say let's get a bigger, so how it is done, this would be the starting index, and then we can define also the step that how much should we increment, and end would be, oh, let me just check. Okay, so how we define the starting point and ending point, that from how much we want to start, and what should be the end point, and how much we want to step over, like how we want to increase it. So it starts from 2, then 8 plus 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 14. So it won't hit the 15, even if we say like one step. In Python, we usually use, in all methods we usually use the last as an upper limit, so it won't be equal to 15. It would be like it would be less than 15. The condition would be that should not be greater than 15. It should always be less than 15. The 14 is less than 15, and as it goes to 15, so 15 is not less than the 15, so that's why it terminated over there. So fairly simple. Basically, in Python, we use for to iterate over list. There are other data structures we can iterate over. So simple example is this: we use range to generate variables between any range we define it. We say, yeah, I think it's clear now. Let's talk about a few pre-built keywords we can use in loops. There is a continue, there is a break. So what continue does, continue just doesn't break the loop, like doesn't terminate the loop. It just skips that control, skips for that control to next loop and next iteration. Like you can see here, this statement will, this is never printed. Why? Because as soon as control comes to this statement, continue means it skips to next iteration. It always skips to next iteration. So that's why this statement is never printed, and this statement is always printed and it comes before continue. So continue doesn't break the control, it just skips to next iteration. Like when first I equal to 0, we are defining in range, so range 5, so means it would go from 0 to 4. First comes I equal to 0, then it continues, then goes to 1, but it does never comes to this statement. Let's talk about now break. So break statement, what is it? It just breaks the loop. uh, it doesn't we won't be getting to next iteration. Like in first iteration, I equal to 0, we executed this statement, then it comes to break. It breaks the looping system loop and comes out of it. Like if there's something else statement below the loop, for loop, like we say print something anything, so it would come to this part. So see, we get this break example after this turn on, then we get something. So break brings the control out of the loop block whenever we encounter the break. These keywords help us to like manipulate a lot of logic. These are these are useful. Continue and break, they helps a lot. For loop, I think it's clear in with the for loop, and we can put the if conditions in for loop. So all the logic of coding is like that. We iterate over things, then we put conditions on the control, and like all this we build a lot of logics. So here printing only even number, if we have a task like let's print only even number, we can check. We start, okay, we start the loop from 0 to 9. We say go to 0, as we define range equal to 10, it would go from 0 to 9 only. Then we say I will be holding a particular value. Range will be a iterator, like it would be having the iteration for value from 0 to 9. I will be holding a single value at a time, so I will be having first having 0, and this symbol, this operator, we use this operator to find remainder. Like if we divide by 2, what is the remainder, we use this operator to get the remainder. So we define that when I is equal to 0, we divide it by 2, remainder would be 0. We say equal to 0. So basically this statement is doing that if a number is divided by 0, then it's an obviously it's an even. That's what we have to check. But so we have to like see that if a number is divided by 2, then it won't be having any remainder, it would be 0. So that's why we compare it with 0. And after for loop we have while loop. Basically while loop is just takes one condition in between while, and then we define one condition here, and based on that condition, uh, as long as this condition is true, while will be repeating the code block in between. But for loop we define the range, like for loop always be like in between, like the for loop will be having some aim, some set that it has to iterate over. It would be like 100 values, 20, and like a range, or any list. Like in list will be having multiple, like we have this list of split. Let's take this example. Like see, we have this string example. Let's take this and iterate over it using for loop. So let's here come. So we have defined a string, we split it. Let's put into a string list, and then iterate. Let's iterate over it for I, or we can say anything, st in sl, and we just print it. So see, we get the let split this one. Now we can do many operations with this. Let's say we want to get all every letter into upper, like this. Okay, string has not, okay, it's not be triple A. So like nesting these statements like this, we build up a lot of logic. So for loop, we use for loop to iterate over things, like moving, accessing one element one time. But in while just uses a condition. Here, we just have to define one condition here. And as long as while that condition is true, keep executing the code in the block of while. And we define the block of while by using this full colon and providing spaces over here. So if everything comes in like in this space range, like if I define anything below this one, so that would all belong to while statement. Like if I say j equal to 0, 0, anything here, that would come under the while loop. And I can't like give further spaces, that would give an indentation error, that it has to be aligned with the about statements. Like this. You can see the example. I can't give, let's try to give another space. Let's see what happens. It gives an indentation error. We get it. So we can't just give a space. We have to define another code block. If we can define that, if we say if I is greater than 3 or whatever, if we put this colon, then we can give this space without any error. See, no error. So now this j belongs to the code block of this if. That's how the indentation and all that handles. So we done with the while loop, for loop. And there's also like a fun thing you can do with while loop. You have to be careful, otherwise it happens sometime you get some logic and you get infinite loop that never stops. Like I said, while true, I just give it the Boolean value. In Python, we have to inbuilt Boolean values true and false. And in this, the T is capital. In false also the F should be capital. So it is an infinite loop. If you run it, it keeps on running, because I defined while is equal to true, and there is no condition to get out of while. It's not that we don't, let me stop it. Okay. So, okay, got it. Stop. Okay. So it's not that we never use while true. we use, but there's always should be some condition. If, like we define, we can say if I is greater than 10, then we use break statement. So there is a use of break, continue, like that. So if we use while equal to, there are some conditions we can use while equal to true, then but then we have to define a condition that to get out of that while loop. So we can define like I equal to 0, and with every conditions we want to increment the I. So yeah, this operator also, this is very helpful. What this means, this, like I use plus equal to, this means I equal to I plus 1. So this is a shorthand we use like for this whole statement. I equal to I plus 1, I just use plus equal to. So now it will only run for the 10 statements, like as long as I is uh, greater than as long as I is not greater than 10, we will be getting this output, and when I is greater than, it breaks the loop. There's some also some useful statements like or and. We want, if we want to put multiple conditions in if, and then we use like or and these kind of statements. Or what or do, in or, if any condition, like any one of these condition is true, then this then the whole statement would be true and the particular code block would be executed. And in and, we see in and every condition should be true. I have put only two conditions, you can put multiple, any number of conditions over here. So every condition has to be true to execute this code block. And in or, if any one condition is true, then it works. But in and, all conditions should be true. Okay, let's see. We have seen the range method, but we seen range as an iterative over here. Like we talked about range over here. So we defined it as an iterator. Like we are getting no output, we are just getting range 2 to 9. It is just showing the iterator. We want to see the values, then we could convert it to list. Let's see, we can see the results now. What we did typecast. I have shown you another example in the input in which we use the int and there was some string. So it converted it to integer. So that's how we use a list to typecast the range into a list parameter. So we get a list over here, 2, 3, 4, like this. We can see the output. But for loop can iterate over iterators. It can, we can directly use range in for loops. It works. So this is a basic syntax of range. We just have starting number, end number, and then we define steps. Steps would be how to increment. Now here is this false. How we define. There is also not statement. If you want to say not something, in C++ we have exclamation sign for that. So I equal to false if I. So this statement won't be running as it is false. I equal to false. Not statement, what it does, it reverse the fact. Like if I is false, it makes it true. If I is true, it makes it false. So now this statement is running. Like you can see, not I means true. It converts it to true, but I is a false. So let's see what we have covered so far. Right now we talked about loops, mainly loops, and we talked about for loop, while loop. There are two kind of loops. For loop is used to iterate over range, over list, over these things, define parameters, like we have defined values. While is used with the condition. When you want to carry on something, as long as the condition is fulfilled, we use while. And we talked about or and. We talked about nesting the if statements in the loops to break the control. And we talked about continue also. I think this is clear so far. Okay, let's move on to the some pre-built data structures we can use in Python. The first one is list. Very helpful. You should first you should get comfortable with the list. You would be using it a lot, a lot. It's also a great way to handle the data. List is also like we can put integer, float, string in one list. It's a great data structure. So list is pretty simple to create. You just have to define the square brackets. Like if you put square brackets and if you put any value in between separated by comma, you get a list. And you'll see, and we can access any element by their index. So first element would be having 0 index, then 1, then 2, then 3, like that. So indexing always starts from 0. And we can put list in list, so that is also very helpful. So that's how, like, we put 2 and then put this list in list. This is also a list. So if we want to access some elements of this list also, like I have defined here, we can see print l equal to 1. We can say print l equal to 1, means we want to access the element at the position 1, and then we know that at position 1 there is a list. So that list also have two indexes, 0 and 1. Then we can define here, over here we can call 0 first element. See, we printed 2, and if we say here like 1, then we will be getting the second element, 3. So list is a fairly easy concept and very useful. You should, if you want to get into any, like, start any data structure of Python, like any, you should get comfortable with list. You will be using it a lot. There would be a few examples I can show you with list. There's not much with list. There are pre-built methods for list also. Those you don't have to like remember all thing. You can just, as you require them, you can just get them from the documentation. Let's see, I have put the different kind of values in a single list. Like these three are integer, then I put two strings, then I put one float value also, then integer. So a list can handle heterogeneous data, means that doesn't have to belong to one category, like only integer, only float, or only list, only string. It can hold any kind of, like, we can put list in a list, we can put tuple in a list, we can put any kind of data in a list. That's really helpful. So we are just for I, means we are iterating over the list using for. It we using first, second, like this element, single element. We are accessing single element one by one, use using for. Then again, we have slicing. We have this feature in list also, very helpful. So in slicing, we just have to define the starting value from which we start and upper limit, like 5 is upper. So it should be like less than 5. So it would be accessing from the second index. So 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, it would be starting from 3. And then it would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All these three values will be printed. So slicing is also a great way to access the data. It helps a lot. And let's move on to other example. So we can add two lists also, like this. We have two lists, L1, 1, 2 high, and L2. We want to add them. So we can add them by L1 plus L2. It's very simple. If any one of you have like an experience of C++, like most of you would be having, so you can appreciate the beauty of like Python. Like we can just add, like, so simply we can add two lists. We can access variable very easily. But if you go in C++, those languages have their advantages. But if you go with like easiness of like coding and high level coding, like, so python is very appreciable in that case. You will appreciate it when you move on to like from C++ background, like how easily you can do these functions. But if you have to do these same functions in C++, it would take a lot of code and a lot of time. Yeah. So that's why Python is so popular nowadays, because everyone want fast development. We want to experiment a lot of things in less time. So in C++, it takes a lot of time. But I'm not saying C++ is bad, all that. They also have their fair share of advantages and all that. So let's get to a few basic methods of list. You will be using a lot only. I will be introducing only those that would be used a lot. First one is append. If you want to add a new, like this, I have defined this list. This list has only three elements, one, two, three. I want to add more element to it. So I used append method. I say the name of the list, then I dot, then I define the method append, and then as an argument I pass the any value I want to append. It could be list, string, float, anything. Then if I can append a list into list. This is L2 list. I appended a list into list. Then I appended a string. Okay. These are just to show that we can get any kind of data into list. Now here I appended a list into list. So what if we want that this list should not be appended as a list, but all its elements should be appended in the list. So we use extend for that. We have append and then we use extend for that. We can use L2, then we say extend L2, means it would get all elements of L2 into L1. It append one by one all elements of L2 into L1. These are methods you will get as you work on the projects. You will get familiar with these methods, but there would be a simple solution also. You can if you don't want to use extend kind of methods, you can always just iterate over, you can say lf for I in L2 L2, and then you just say L1 dot append I. You can access the element of L2 one by one and then append that element into L1. That is a simple solution you can do. In programming, there would always be many solutions to a problem. This depends on your way, your style of working, that you will recognize as you work on more and more problems. You will start building up a personal style, like how you want to maintain the code and how you want to work on a program. So these are just the personal preferences. Then deleting an element from a list, we use remove, we use pop. In pop we define that we define index of the element which we want to delete. But in remove method we define the element that we want to delete. Like here it's a 4, so I want to delete the value 4. Like 4 should be deleted. But pop 4 means I want to delete value at index 4, like 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But after the 4, here the 4 will be removed. We will be having this list, and in this we check the fourth index: 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 6 should be removed, and in next you can see the 6 is removed. So so far we discussed list, how to define a list. We just use square bracket, it will define a list. We can put anything into list, be it a string or this. And if we had to add new value, we use append, and we can put a list into list. And if we want to remove some value, we use remove. We can use pop to remove a value from a particular index. Okay, we can check the length of a list by len length. Okay, so and next keyword I want you to get familiar with is enumerate. Very helpful keyword. What it does, sometime we have a list and we also want to access the index side by, like we want to that which number of element is it. Like high is at 0, it's at 8, 1, and like this. If I do just for I in L, then it just give me the element, direct element. I don't get the index of element. But if I want the index of an element, so I use for index. I define here these are the receive, these two variables will be receiving values from this method enumerate. What it does, it enumerate method, it gets like it returns high, and it also returns its index. It will be returning 0 and high in first. You can see here the output, index and the value. So enumerate method, it returns index as well as the value from the list. So this method is useful in some logical solutions, like we want to do, like we also want the index also, and we want to access the element also, so we use enumerate for that. Then there is a method that is zip. Zip is used like we want to iterate over two lists simultaneously. We want to access two lists simultaneously. Like for example, we have a two list. The first list is of first name of the people and last name of the people. So we want to print first and last name side by side. But how we can do, like if we just access first list, then we can print, but it would be difficult like to access. So we use for zip method. In this zip method, what we define the list. It could be any number. It doesn't have to be like only two list. It could be 3, 4, 5, and uh, simultaneously here, like corresponding, these would be the receiving variables, that these will be receiving the value. F will be receiving value from first name, and L will be receiving value from last name. And if I get add one more list over here, then I have to increase one more receiving value variable also. So zip what does, it group together all the list and access the variable from every list simultaneously. Like zip will be returning from variable from first index from here also and here also. So these values will be assigned to these receiving variables, and by printing we can see the results. You can see like, yeah, Aman, like it is matching first name, second name. Yeah. Then we can see, let's get to some simple examples. Like if we want to search something, we want to check that if a particular value exists in a list or not, we can just simply do it by in method. We just say like, if Aman in first name, it says that if Aman exists in first name list, it would be true, other it was be false. So we can see here like it exists, so we can see the output also. There it exists, you can see. So in method is used to check if a particular value exists in the list or not. There are other ways also to check, but yeah, again it is a personal preference, so I'm just giving you one way of doing it. You can say Aman in first name, like it would return. If we say like, let's run only this statement, let's don't use it in if statement. You can see it returns true. Like Aman in first name, it returns true. And if I do something else which doesn't exist in the first name, it returns false. And if works on, if always works, if here the value is true, it executes its block, otherwise it executes else block. You can see the output. Yeah, I think it's clear with the list. We talked about how to create list, append list, uh, how to enumerate a list, like getting index and value simultaneously, use zip to get outputs from, if we want to iterate 2, 3 more list, more than one list simultaneously, because use zip. Then if we want to search in a list, we could use in method directly in, like Aman in first name, like this. Yeah. Any questions so far?
Yeah, Karan. Someone asks, when we were using the while loop, why did you write I less than 5 and not I equal to less than or equal to 4 or
Yeah.
equal to 4?
Yeah, that was just an example. We can do that also. It was just an example. I was just giving an example here, like while while I is greater than 10. Yeah, here I is I is less than 5. It is just an example. We can do anything, like we can do 4, we can do equal to 4, and we can do I equal to 4, we can do I not equal to 4. All these would work. Yeah, if we run this like not equal to 4, it ran as long as I not equal to 4. So if is equal to 4, it won't run because I equal to 0 at the starting. So it doesn't matter what I put here, I equal to anything. Main point is there, it has to be a condition here, any condition. You could have any condition. So if that condition true, then this is executor, otherwise not. You can put anything, like 5 was just an example. Any other question?
No, as of now, Karan. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So we covered the list. Let's move on to the next data structure. We will be having only, we have three main data structures, I would say: list, set, dictionary, and yeah, these are the main. And there's a tuple also, tuple. 4, we can say the main data structure, but mostly you will be using the list and dictionary. You will be using these a lot. Tuple is used mainly when we have to have the arguments, like we want to, because tuple is immutable. Like once you have given the values, defined the values in a tuple, you cannot change them, you cannot delete them. So, and you cannot change them. So that's why when we want some values to be constant, we want them not to change, we use tuple over there. The list is clear to you. These would be like fairly simple. They won't be having a lot of like different. They are very little. There's a little difference with all these data sets. Set, it resonate with the set we have in math. In math we have like set method. So in what we have in set, we cannot have the redundant data. The data should be like unique. Like here you can see in list we could have like this value 1 2 3. We could have any redundant data in list. This is a list in between. Then I converted it to a set. But in a set we cannot have the redundant data. Like here I am having 3 4 values, and here I am having 3 5s. But in set we cannot have. Once I convert it to set, or it only takes the unique values 1 2 3 4 5 only. It won't take the old values. So that's a little different. And moving on, set is just used for this purpose when we want to like have unique values. It is not like a lot. It is not used a lot. And let's move on. So in set, if we want to add, always like set, list, string, all these will be having some pre-built methods, like adding, for adding element, for deleting element, and like that. So you don't have to, like, again I'm saying, you don't have to remember or uh, learn it by heart. You always check the documentation. So like here we can define list like this. Again, let's move on to dictionary. If you're having any like doubt, and you can ask the question, but I'm not focusing that much on the set because it's not used that much. It's only we can say the difference is that it captures only unique values. If you will be doing like competitive programming in Python, then you would be having a use for set, solving a lot of problems. But if you get to into development, you could have some time use it, but it's not used that like for like list or dictionary. You can if you have any question, you can ask over it. Let's move to dictionary first. So dictionary is very useful. You and yeah, any questions? Any questions on the set?
Yeah, Karan. Someone asks, what if have a while in the bracket I equal to 0, comma 2, comma 4?
Okay, okay, let me
If
write
you
that
want a
first. Okay.
condition like this.
what is saying? If we have while,
I equal to
I equal to I equal to
0 comma
what, 2?
0 comma
Okay, 0 comma
0 comma 2 comma 4 2
2
comma
comma.
4.
So no, we can't do that. It would be an error. We can show you anything input here. It would be invalid syntax because we can't assign these kind of values to I. It could be a list. If you define a list, then it would be running. You can define a list here. Okay. Okay. Yeah. In like in this Python, we can't do latest version of Python. We can do like directly assign the values also. So like if we do it up here, and then we just keep the I, then it would be running infinitely. You can see it would take a time to stop. Okay, so it runs infinitely. Why? Because the I here over here, if it has some value like a list is a considered to be a for that you have to get to a low level concept of like I is holding some value, and all these values are some values they are holding, so it gets true because it's a 2 4. Like if we do I equal to 0, while 0, if we write just I at the place of I, if I say I equal to 0, then it would be false because we okay, why is the shouldn't give the false. Okay, yeah, in Python we have the, it doesn't want you to keep one equal to it. It got the in Python we got this feature now because a lot of error causes, because if we put single comma, what happens like if we put a single equal to it happens in a lot of problems, in big problem, big, if you're solving a lot of big problem and you're writing code, if we put a single equal to, it makes this statement true and it becomes an infinite loop, and nobody wants infinite loop in their program. So that's why it is raising a syntax error. It has been removed by default. It checked by default by the code. So we have to put the double quoting. We have to make it a condition over here, because single equal to is not a condition. It is assignment. We just assigning a value to a variable, but double to puts a condition over there. There's a lot of updates in Python that's are fairly good. They make changes based on the program, like whatever community wants. There is also Python 2, that is the old one, and it is not used that much now. And we have Python 3, and right now I think the Python 3.9 would be coming, so it would be safe to work on Python 3.6 and 3.7. And there is a lot of new features coming with these versions. Any other questions with it?
Yeah, no, thank you, Karan.
Okay, so we were on the dictionary. So these are data structures are just based on a concept. List is on a concept that it would be a list of any items, you can put anything in it. Set would be a collection of items with only unique items. Set would be collection of only unique items. List would be collection of any items. And dictionary would be mapping of items. Like I have to, in list we access an element by index 0 1 2. So we can say in list the index are mapped, like 0, for 0 we have given a value. Like in a list we have given in list, like in I, it is a list, I say at a 0 index I have 0. And whenever I want to access the first element, I just say I square bracket 0. But in dictionary we define what we want to map to a value. Like I mapped here, I say if I call A, then output should be 1. And if I want to access 2, if I call like B, then there would be 2. Like we will be mapping to values. We call it key value pair. A would be key and 1 is a value. So one value is mapped to a key, and it could be of anything. Like they not necessarily want them to be like, we can have heterogeneous data. Like here I'm using an integer 3, here I am having a string, it is called a string B. We can run these examples. So we can access like this, like I have defined DA. When I call DA, it's A is a key and it calls its value 1, like that. So there are also, the main concept dictionary is that we want to map key value pairs. Yeah, any questions so far?
Sorry, Karan, could you please increase the font size by any chance? Is it possible?
Yeah, I can do that. Is it good now?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, okay. Oh, so I think it's now good. So in dictionary, we map values like A to 1, B to 2, like this. We define those. So concept is same. We have talked about list. List could have hold any data set, only unique values it holds. In dictionary, it holds key value pairs. Like that would be a key and then corresponding value. There are some methods, pre-built methods like pop for deleting, and all data structures have list also have some pre-built methods, string also have like that, dictionary also have a pre-built method pop for deleting a method. Like if I take pop A, I define here that A key should be deleted. So A1, this pair would be deleted. If we want to clear the dictionary, we want to delete all the values, we use d.clear. It will clear all the value of the dictionary. So it's a fairly simple concept. Let's move on to tuple. To define a tuple, for define a dictionary, we use curly braces. For list, we use square braces. And for tuple, we use these normal brackets. Okay. So T, and we use these brackets to define tuple. If I say 1, 2, so main feature of tuple is immutable. You can't change the values once you have defined. Like if I say T equal to 1, 2, I cannot delete 1 or 2 and in between. I can't do that. And I also cannot update it. So I cannot change anything with these values. So it is immutable. This is also helpful in decoding whenever we want that if some argument is passed to a function, we want them to be a constant so that they don't change. And here you can see we can add two tuples. We can add two tuples. That is possible. We are just adding. It's just that the value of that particular tuple we cannot change. We cannot change anything in that tuple. So adding two tuple is easy, fairly easy. We use just an add operator. We can check the type of T. And if you have only single value, you want to create a tuple, then you have to have this 1 and then a comma. You have to do this, otherwise it won't become a tuple. You have to define a comma. You have to put a comma over there. We can slice the tuple. Though we can access the elements of the tuple, we just don't we can't change. We can slicing is a great feature. Good to get comfortable with slicing. We can slice a tuple. I mean how we do the slicing, like 1 to 4 means index 1, 2 and 3 will be returned. Like index 1, this would be 1, like 0, 1, 2 and 3 would be returned. Here we have the output. We can check the length of this tuple by len method. We can check the length of a tuple. And like, see here I have shown put an example in which I am trying to change a value of a tuple. I have defined a tuple like hi. I want to change the first value at first index t0, that would be high. I want to change it to some new value, but I can't do that. That would give me an error. Yeah. Tuple does not support item assignment. Item assignment means you cannot change the value, you cannot assign a new value to that index. And here is an example where I'm trying to delete the tuple and then I'm printing it. So del t, what it does, it deletes all the tuple. It deletes all the tuple. I cannot delete a particular element, but I can remove whole tuple. That is possible because I'm removing the all that is free. I'm freeing the space, but I cannot delete a single element from the tuple. That's not possible. It gives error. And this is an example to convert a list to tuple. This is a list, as you can see from these brackets. These brackets are used for list. And so you can see here type also. I've printed the list and then type. And once I convert it to tuple, we can use tuple. Then I pass list or list as an argument. So it converts that list to tuple. Then we print it. We get the type tuple, and you can see here the bracket also. This list is converted to this tuple. So far, I think good. We discussed all four pre-built data structures in Python: list, set, dictionary, and tuple. Now let's move. Now let's move on to, like, we have discussed the feature list can hold any values, and we have tuple. Then we have set, list hold any values. Then we have the set only unique values, dictionary holds key value pair, and then we have tuple, those old value and those are immutable, we cannot change them. Let's move on to next concept, that is functions. So I think we have discussed the data structures, we have discussed the conditioning statements, if else, then we discussed the loop, we discussed the variable, and these functions. After covering these, we would be done with the basics of Python. I think functions, this is would be this last concept for the basics. So converting, declaring a function in Python is fairly easy. We don't have to define the return type like in C++ or Java. And there is no requirement for like defining the return type or what type of arguments we want. Like let's go with the examples, it would be more clear. So this we use keyword def to define a function. Def, this would be a function name, then these brackets, and in between those we can put in arguments we want to receive, and again the colon to define that there is a code block below this, a block with space. We put space to define that is a different code block belongs to this function. Executing this, and for calling a function we just put function name and bracket. So now let's move on to passing the arguments. We define df, then sum. These a, b, we don't have to worry about the type which we want to define a and b. So we define sum. It's a simple method to add two numbers, and it return statement used to return a value. These are some basic concepts, fairly simple. Like we have to define, then we have to return some value from a function. We use functions to put a redundant code in that, like we are using same operation again and again, so we don't want to put that write that code again, so we put it into a code block that is called function. And moreover, function makes the code modular. Like we don't want all the code in a single way or in a single function. We want to break it into a modular parts according to their working, so that we could have readability. It increase the readability of the code. In if you put the code in small functions, it increase the readability. Here is an example of multiplying two numbers and printing list. Is just simple. We can pass this example shows that we can pass list as an argument. We can pass dictionary, anything as an example, as an input. So here, what if we just put a colon and doesn't define any statement in the function? So it would give us an error, obviously, because if you put this colon, it expects something below this. It want that there is coming some statement, and if we put nothing over there, it is going to give us an error. So there is also keyword we use, pass. Like if you are designing a application, and you define all your function, but you haven't implemented them yet, but you want, means you have like suppose you have 8 functions. Out of those 8 functions, you have implemented only 2. You want to check them, but all those you have defined all those functions, you put the name of those functions, you will be implementing them later. But if you don't do something, like if you put like this, you will be getting error. So there is a keyword we use, pass. It just pass the control. If control comes here, it just pass the control, we will get no error. We can use this statement in classes, function, everywhere. So that's it with the functions. We are clear with the basics of function. There is some extra, we were talking about like importing. In C++, we have header files, like we define include header file like that. But in Python, we use keyword import. Import import is used to access libraries in Python. We can use already written code by others in our program. We use import for that. It just used to use the already implemented libraries by other people. This is just pip. Pip is used to install these libraries. Pip is, we can say, install is a manager to which provides all these libraries. People upload their libraries on the website. Pip provides also a way how people should upload and what should be the structure. And with pip, we can easily install it. Installing library is one of the easiest way in Python. We just do pip install and we can install the one. And this is just an example. I'm showing an extra example to read file, how to read a simple text file. In this Colab environment I am working right now, you can run the Linux commands also. I have mostly worked on Ubuntu system. I haven't worked much on the Windows. So these commands fairly help. They help a lot, while working on things. So you can also run the commands like Linux commands in this Google Colab also. You have to just put the exclamation sign in front of them. Cat is used to put data, show files. A lot of work for cat. If I do cat file text, and if I write something here, anything like this is just, and then I put something and anything like this all input I'm giving is going in file.txt. This is just to prepare the prepare this file, so I can show you an example to how to read it. So all this data is in cat. We can see that by using cat file.txt. All this data is already present in cat.txt. So how to read it in Python? So we use open method for that. Open file name, and R means to read this file. W means to write that file. So it will create an object or instance, we can say. And if we say f.read, it will output, it will read whole file from the starting to end. So it read all whole this file. We just written the content in this file using cat. So it read it. If you want to read it line by line, we can do that. It just output the first line. And if we iterate over it, again, I call f dot. So it will move on to next line. See, the first line, it calls this is just line. And again, if I call read online, it calls online. So we can iterate over it like using for. And we can write into a file. If we for file w, if we use w to write, and always we have to use f dot clause. It is a good practice. Good practice. We have to use it. Only then the data is flushed into it. For writing, we can append also. Append data. Always whenever we are writing the data, data should be in the string format. Only string should will be written. So with this, we are at the end of our basic concepts of Python. I think those are fairly easy concepts. You can get over. More you practice, you will be comfortable in. Now let's go with the questions. You have anything you want to ask?
Yeah, Karan, someone else. Could you please give an example combining the concept of dictionary and user input?
Dictionary and user input. Okay, sure. So okay, so we want to from user, let's get from user what we want to get input. Okay, we ask let's get input from a user, and we say that enter a key. We say enter a key, and then we say enter a value, and we get a value from user also. We just get the key and value from user as an input. Then we let's create a dictionary named D. We can say D equal to key and value. Okay, so it's asking for a key value. I just say key would be, let's say A, and we say value, I say let's 4. So it creates a dictionary D. We can see it by printing D. See, it's saying that A map to 4. See here, 4 is a string. We want 4 to be integer. Then what we can do, we can put here in the value, we can say int. We convert that string to integer. Again, we run it. Let's give A. Then again, we give it 4. And here, let's print the result. Now you can see 4 is an integer. So that's creating dictionary is easy. Yeah. Any further question?
Yeah. Rahul asks, can we add a tuple in a list or list in a tuple?
What tuple in? Can we?
Can we add tuple
Yeah.
in a list or list
Yeah.
in a tuple?
Yeah, we can do that. Let's go with an example. There's a list. I got created created an empty list. This is an empty list. And let's create a tuple T 1, 2. And now let's first append something integer or something into list, and then let's append our tuple, and let's print. We can just print L by just. In this environment, we don't have to write print. It already by default prints. See, here is the tuple. We can put the tuple into list easily. Okay, let's try other way around. Let's put we can put T on, so tuple 1, 2, 3. See, I have put the 1, and this is a list. This is a simple. Let's print also it. You can see we have put the 1. It is an integer, and 1, 2, 3. It is a list. We can easily do that. This is the beauty of Python. We can easily put all these data structure hold heterogeneous data. Means we can put any kind of data into these. It doesn't have to be homogeneous like a common. We can put anything into it. So this, you can see here, these brackets define tuple, and these are the list brackets. We can easily do it. Yeah. Any other question?
Uh, they also ask, what type of projects can I show in my resume?
Yeah. So the first question would be with the project would be like in which field you want to pursue. Like with Python, you can go into networking, cybersecurity, penetration testing, web development, machine learning, AI, computer vision, NLP. There are lot of fields you can go using Python. So your project should be aimed towards that. You want to get into web development, so get your hand dirty with the work on Django project, Flask project, And if you want to get into into automation, pen testing, cybersecurity type stuff, so you could do automation with Selenium, automating your WhatsApp messaging, automating login, automating the filling up of forms. And if you want to get into machine learning, for machine learning you will find very amazing projects. You could start with as simple as stock market prediction, and in computer vision you could go with classification of digits. You can go with classifying dog or cat. In NLP you can go with normal like text generation. There are great projects you can start with it. And if your aim is to get into data science or in deep learning, machine learning, you can work on like Kaggle is a great platform. There's a lot of beginner competitions. You can start with them like Titanic. There is a facial key pointer detection. You can start with those basic competitions, for they are beginner friendly. So project would be depending on the field you are choosing. Yeah. Other question, please?
Yeah. What are the important codes, concepts, and libraries to know in Python to pursue data analysis or crack an interview for the same post?
Yeah, for data analysis, you should be comfortable with pandas. Pandas is a library to manipulate the data. Then you should be comfortable with matplotlib, seaborn. These are the libraries for the visualization. You want to plot graphs and all that. And pandas would do the job. You can learn numpy for handling the arrays, manipulation of matrices and all that. And I think these library pandas and matplotlib will be the most important libraries. And to crack an interview you have to work on a few first you have to work on a few data sets to get a practical knowledge. And after that you have to prepare for specific questions. And yeah, you should also be comfortable with SQLite. It's a Python library used for SQL commands. You can create database, yeah, from that. First work on a few data sets. You can get data set from Kaggle, or there are many other sites. You can get data from that, work on them, plot. They do EDA, like exploratory data analysis. And you will be comfortable with in the interview with that. Practical knowledge is important because it helps in explaining the questions in the interview. Yeah. Other question, please.
So, not considering the difficulty level, which is better for advanced and fast UI development, Python or Java?
I think for UI, both of them are. If you want to work on advanced UI development, then I think you should go with JavaScript, like React, Angular, and if you have to choose between Python and Java, I think Java is better at that. You can do a lot of things in Python, like you can build the games and good also, but Java had a old and more community towards that. So Java would be the choice here. But for advanced UI, I suggest you check JavaScript also, like React, Angular. These are great too. Okay. Next question, please.
Yeah. Any tips to master coding and how to deal with algorithms?
And for that, I would say consistency is required. Like you have to work every day on it. You want to work like you want to work 2 hours on that, that's okay, but you have to work daily on it. Every day you should work on it. You can practice problems on HackerRank, great platform if you want to be good at algorithms. And like building projects to clear your programming concept, your development concepts, and how do you manage your code. And for algorithms, you have to practice on platforms like HackerRank, CodeChef, Codeforces. These are great platforms to practice the algorithm and data structure concept. Next question, please.
I mean, for now, as of now, we have anything. Okay, wait. There's a question in the chat. Sir, for mobile app development, Python or Java is better?
Mobile development. Uh, what kind of development? Sorry.
A mobile app development.
Oh, for mobile app development, yeah, obviously Java. No, Python. Python doesn't work great in mobile development. Go with Java, or try some other also things like Python is not in the race of mobile development. It's out of that. Java is best for that. Another question.
Guys, if you have any more questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat section. We shall take them up. Okay, I guess there are no doubts as of now.
Okay, yeah,
Mm,
that's okay. Yeah.
thank you so much, Karan, for the amazing session. I'm pretty sure that our audience has so much to take back from them from the session. Uh, we are going to drop in the links soon. Please do answer the quiz. Successful submissions will receive a certificate of appreciation post the events. Please fill in the details correctly as they shall be reflected in a certificate. Also, this link shall be open till 3 p.m. So make sure you fill it within you fill in the quiz within that time. Also, do check out our social media handles. Go follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn for regular updates of events, initiatives, and scholarship. Even though we don't have openings currently, we are always interested in expanding our family. Do put in a word regarding your interests and specialities so we can contact you in case we have any openings. Looking forward to having you join our team. Lastly, we want to give a very big thank you to our speaker, Mr. Karan Jakhar, to taking out his time and introducing us to Amazing Python. A huge thank you to all the amazing participants for staying with us till the end. Hope to see you in all our further events. Thank you so much and have a great day ahead.